In this video, we're going to be checking out 5 custom builds from the MakerPipe community. These are all wildly different, but they're all made with off-the-shelf electrical conduit and MakerPipe connectors. And we're just going to briefly talk about the ideas and some of the techniques in case you want to incorporate the same ideas and techniques into whatever it is that you're making, even if you're not making these exact same builds, which might be the case because some of these are pretty unique, including this first one, which is a prom arch that was put together by Scott. And this thing is awesome. Now, even if you're not making a prop for a prom, this is a really cool build and has some really great techniques incorporated into it. Essentially here, let's just screenshot this and we'll kind of talk about a few of the highlights. But essentially looks like a square base on each side. And then he attached conduit pieces to that using the MakerPipe adjustable angle flange. Looks like there's 4 of those. And he used those flanges because they allow you to basically attach conduit to a flat surface at various angles. And that was really important for this kind of build because he needed, obviously to make this giant arch, which is, going to be angled and not just attached vertically straight into it. So essentially he's got that piece of conduit, all 4 of those on each side going up at an angle. And he used a large radius bend in this build. And we've talked about doing that in a video that you can check out. I'll link down below. It's a tutorial and a calculator on how you can, make large radius arches. It's a little bit difficult and tricky, but we try to make it easier with that calculator. But essentially, you just use the same handheld pipe and tube bender that you use for small radius bends, but you just do them incrementally over time and over a span to create this large arch. But obviously, this is massive, so it's not just one piece of conduit. Looks like he used, if I had to guess, that's probably 3 pieces of conduit per arch. And then I think he's joining those together with MakerPipe couplings in various places. And that's a really good technique if you're making a large, arch like this. You're kind of limited to the span, the 10-foot span that you can get off the shelf. If you don't combine them together. But it's really cool and obviously a pretty technical build with a lot of bends in there to make that the case. But like I said, I'm pretty sure it's just 3 pieces of EMT conduit and then joined together with couplings. But essentially, he just did that, and then he had to do pretty much the same thing, but even wider, an even different angle on the outside to get this arch on the outside, and then essentially just added cross braces between them to kind of make this, it looks like a duct, honestly, like an air duct, but really fantastic and just a lot of great techniques in this, a really challenging build. This is one of those, usually I say almost every build is simple and easy to recreate, but this one is a pretty tricky one, to be honest. But you could do it with the practice, and if you do, and if you need something like this is a really great idea and looks really awesome. Scott, really awesome with the decorations on there for the prom, which is really cool. So thanks so much for sharing this. We love seeing it. Next up is another great one. This one comes from Fred, and this is a golf simulator screen frame that he put together with the EMT Conduit and MakerPipe connectors. And essentially this is made, as we can see here, and it goes into a section of his garage that has some overhead storage, and obviously he's got a car parked there as well. So this is kind of a unique space that he needed this custom creation for, which is honestly oftentimes why we see conduit and MakerPipe used as a building material, because people need an easy solution for a really custom build. And so we can see here he's got this unique space that he wanted to build a simulator frame, and it's pretty simple overall, where essentially it just has that upper rectangle up there that is kind of attached to the wall. And essentially he just used EMT conduit and attached it to the wall down here with a flange and a MakerPipe T connector, and then has those verticals on each side basically just to pull the golf impact screen tight, as we can see there in the framework. And then it looks like he's using, I think this is a certain kind of golf simulator where it's made so you can kind of fold out the sides, and I think the top half of the simulator is something that he already had on hand, and then that's what these curtains attach to for the side. And so he was really making a frame using EMT conduit to attach to that existing one. At least I think that's the case. Let's check it out here. Let's see. Need to park my car in the garage, overhead storage rack. Everything went super smoothly. Maybe this actually is built with, oh yeah, the whole thing is built with the EMT conduit. That's really awesome. Sorry, I was mistaken. The whole thing is built with the EMT conduit. It just doesn't look like it because he used some of those foam pieces on the conduit, which is really good if you're kind of worried about the ball ricocheting, which in a golf impact screen you should be. So that's really cool. And the whole thing is actually made with EMT conduit and MakerPipe connectors, which is just really awesome and really great that he was able to customize this whole thing and do that. And here it is in place. and he's able to get some practice swings at home and still park in the garage and still use the space for what it's intended. So that is really cool, Fred. Thanks so much for sharing this build. We love seeing it. Next up is a build from Jennifer, and this is a lean-to trellis that I think is fantastic. Looks really awesome, and she said it's been up for a few years and it's been working out great. As we can see here, I don't have any earthly idea what plant that is, but it's growing on there and it's attached to the trellis and getting the support it needs, and that's all that matters, which is really cool. And essentially she did this pretty simply, just using some EMT conduit that goes up, and it's 2 verticals per trellis, and then there's a piece of conduit just slightly angled here that goes and rests against the wall, and she used a maker pipe 45-degree connector to attach that angled piece to the verticals that are going up. And then essentially she has these cattle panels secured to the frame using, I think, just zip ties on there just to hold those in place. And you could use the classic nylon zip ties if you wanted, or you could use metal zip ties if you want something, more long-term, outside, just to keep the sun from destroying them. But this is really cool, nice and simple solution. And she's able to move these around really easily. And her main goal of this, you can see she's got this window in the background that's the awning style and folds out instead of goes up. So she really wanted to make sure she had room to do that. And by angling these the way she did in this kind of lean-to way, she's able to maintain the window clearance that she needs to be able to open and close that really easily, but still have her plants growing outside. So kind of the best of both worlds, and achieved what she needed to for that. So that's really awesome, Jennifer. Really great build. Love seeing it. Next up is a build from Veronica and Richard, and they have a business. And here in this front office, they basically built a storage rack for their merch, as you can see here. This is a really simple build. It's just essentially pieces of EMT conduit attached to the wall using flanges, and then there is a vertical support here in the middle using 180-degree connectors from Maker Pipe, and those essentially go down and kind of support the 2 racks and kind of combine them together, and adds the support down here by being bolted to the wall again. Essentially, we can see some corner bends in there to make it look nice, and it's just one continuous piece of conduit till it gets to that 180. Which, if you're unfamiliar, the 180 is really good for builds like this because you can add that structural support that your project might need, but you can basically break up these horizontal spans. So you just split it in half. You've got the 180-degree connector in the middle there, and then you've got the piece of conduit running continuously through the 180 all the way down to the bottom, and then it attaches to the flange there, as you can see. A bunch of flanges, and essentially that's just how this whole rack was put together. Just these horizontal spans that are split up, and then that vertical support with the 180s, and then all 5 of those flanges secured just to give these some support. Really awesome. Doesn't look like a ton of clothes, but you want to make sure, of course, this isn't going to rip out of the wall, and not going to bend the pipes or anything. So it looks like they did a really good job with that. So thanks so much for sharing this. Really cool to see. Last but not least is probably the first build of its kind that we've seen, and this comes from David. This is an award ceremony podium that he built with EMT conduit and Maker Pipe, which is really awesome, and really great to see this come to fruition. Dave, the owner, has talked about this for a while, that this would be a good build, and this is really, really awesome to see it come to life. And David shared this. We can see here it's essentially just a standard award ceremony for track and field, different things. Got all the way enough spots for 8 people, and essentially just made it all with the EMT conduit and Maker Pipe, just like all these builds, and just customize the dimensions based on the specific podium, and just kind of customize these dimensions, and then attach the panels to them that has the numbering for the place, and then of course has the different heights so they can all stand on their specific level, which is really cool. We can see basically just a lot of Maker Pipe. Looks like 90-degree connectors, basically just to make these cubes. And if you're unfamiliar with those, essentially you just use those in the corners. And so we'll just kind of look at one of these here. But essentially you've got a 90-degree connector, one in each corner, and that just allows you to have these vertical poles, and then you have the pieces of conduit that kind of terminate in the connector and then go from side to side and front to back, just like that, and all connect together like that. And then the same thing up here. Looks like just below the flanges on each of these, as we can see there is essentially another 90 just to add another rung, and that's really cool. And then it looks like he's using the Maker Pipe flange to attach those panels, which is really cool, and just overall a really fantastic build. And David did a really good job with this, and it just looks awesome, and just a really great custom solution. Looks like there's another one back here. I think this is maybe a bench, so people can sit behind it, maybe to store different things. But, kind of using the same techniques there with the 90s and the flanges to mount those. And, just a really awesome build. Love seeing this one for sure. All of us here got a kick out of it, and hope you did too. Hope you enjoyed all these builds. If you want to see any of them in more detail, they'll be linked down below. Thanks, everybody, for sharing your build, and thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.